Well, good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday morning, October 29th, almost the end of the month. And this is episode 29 of Two Guys, or excuse me, the Patriot Pulse podcast. But if you are following us still on Two Guys Drinking Coffee, it's episode 232. And I was just, every time I look at that intro with the flag, and that was our patriotic intro from Two Guys Drinking Coffee, and it still says Two Guys Drinking Coffee on it. So one of these days, Fred, I've got to modify that. I got to go into my software and change that. We could leave Two Guys on there, but I got to add the Patriot Pulse on there too. So Fred, good morning. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well, doing well. A little chilly this morning, but doing well.
Yeah, I don't know where everybody else is in this world, but I'll tell you what, in Bradford, Pennsylvania, I think it was down in the 20s today. I'm not sure. I think so. But it was chilly. So, or it still is chilly. I was out with my dogs a few minutes ago out back, and it was pretty cold. So, anyways, our title for today is more thoughts on our what's going on in our world. We're going to do a deeper dive, I should say, into the government shutdown that I still say is not really a shutdown because essential services are still being taken care of. So we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into that. I think we've talked about that a couple times. But also we're going to get into what's going on. There's still in the news all this shit with ICE. I'm telling you, the sanctuary city, the cities and governors and all these people, they were breaking the law. I mean, well, I won't go into my dissertation right now because I'll tell you what I get started and it just makes my blood boil. But anyways, we'll be talking about that. And then finally, if we have time, we're going to talk a little bit about what is our greatest threat to this nation right now. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. Before we get started, as always, we always ask you, regardless of what platform you're watching us on, click like, click share, subscribe. If it's on YouTube, if it's on X, whatever, subscribe to our channels, like our page. Do whatever you can do to help us overcome the algorithms that are still shadow banning us. So, anyways. If you can do that for us, we'd appreciate it. I had a whole monologue started. I'm not gonna do this whole thing, but I still want to challenge the people that are so quote unquote anti-MAGA. As I said, I think before on a previous podcast, I wish we could disassociate that with Trump. I mean, right. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against Trump, but the whole concept of make America great again should be a universal through this country sentiment that everybody would want, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely 100%.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to make the country that you're a part of better? Make it great and make it great again. I mean, we were a great country, but there's a lot of things that are going on that have really, really taken it down a bunch of notches. And I'm all for the MAGA movement. I am 100% for the MAGA movement. But when I say that, I don't have, I do have a hat that says Trump on it, but it's not the MAGA hat, it's make America great again. So let's keep that in mind, everybody, that, you have a person that, or a movement that's trying to make America great. And we just got off, a couple Democrat presidents, Obama and Biden. Well, Biden wasn't really our president. Let's face it. But they did everything they could to destroy our country. Yet there are still people that are supporting that idea. And again, if you live in a country that is free, well, at least on the surface we're free, how how can you support people like Mondamni and those that are communists that want to take our country down? Riddle me that one, Batman. How could you? I
I
just
don't even think people pay attention anymore. If the media says it, they believe it. It's almost like the news stations have become the gospel, and all the rest are just part of their congregation.
yeah. The yeah. Speaking of that, we've been saying for 4.5 years now that the mainstream media is nothing more than the propaganda arm for the Democrat Party. And I know there's a certain person that used to be on our podcast here, Jim. If you're listening, yes, I'm talking about you. That talks about it's one big club out there, and we're not part of it. And yes, we have a uniparty to a certain extent, but still we have different ideologies between the two parties. Wouldn't you say, Fred? Am I off base
Absolutely.
on that? In other words,
You're right on.
you got Democrats that want to tax and spend, give everything away, and then the Republican base. Let's put it this way, and I'll say there's tax and spenders on the Republican side too, but those people we need to get rid of. But you got the Republican platform anyway is for smaller government. It's for less intrusion. It's for reducing the expenditures, reducing the size of government. And at $38 trillion, I don't know how we can, well, it's going to keep going up. I mean, what option do they have until something crashes and brings it all down? Maybe that'll be maybe that will be the reset. It's not the great reset that Schwab wanted, but maybe that's the American reset.
I
don't
think
know.
that what people forget is, I mean, I just had this conversation with a guy that I work with, and he was like, well, I just have a problem with seeing that hat. That hat bothers me, the mega hat. And I said, okay, let's break it down. Make America great again. What's bad about that? Well, they're racist. I said, okay, let's go back to what I just said. Make America great again. I said, do you realize there was a time where black people were slaves, right? But if you didn't pay attention to it, black people didn't get free on their own. There was a lot of white people died in that process so that black people can be free. Uh, the Freedom Trail wasn't formed by black people. It was formed by a white person that sacrificed their life to help black people get free. If you look at the Civil War, if you look at the war, white people fought to help black people get free. And we forget that one thing. We don't care about the lives that cost to get us to where we are. We get black people where they are, but they assume anybody that's anyone remote patriotic is a racist. But what about the white people that died to help you get your freedom?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. And the other point, which gets brought up, but everybody seems to ignore, is the South was basically Democrat. The KKK was all Democrat. And, it was the Republicans that were fighting for the abolishment, of the slavery. And, right. But now the Democrats want to turn that around. So, oh yeah, Tom made a good comment here. Right. The other thing too, there have been free and slaves 100%. all through history. White people have enslaved other white people. Black people have enslaved other black people. Muslims have enslaved Christians. Jews have enslaved others. Others have enslaved Jews. I mean, it's not a black and white thing, no. But that's the way the current Democratic Party wants you to believe.
That's how they want to sell it. You're right.
Yeah. Well, anyways, let's get into because I want to talk about this. We're into day 28 of this quote unquote shutdown. That's not really a shutdown, because on 12 a.m. stroke of midnight, October 1st, that's when the federal government suspended all its non-essential services. So here we are on day 28, and I don't. Have you noticed any drastic reduction in your quality of life, Fred?
No, it's still the same old Bradford with high gas taxes and everything like that. I mean, I guess if
Well,
things get,
that's just it. I mean, there's been no drastic reduction in services. People are still getting their SNAP benefits. They're still getting their food stamps. They're still getting their Social Security. They're still getting their Medicaid and all of that. But yet people are screaming. And what we have, what is it, about a $1.4 trillion difference? Is it, Fred?
Mhm.
Between what the Democrats want to add. And again, let's just reiterate this: the Republicans on prior to October 1 just said we want a clean CR, continuing resolution. Which, by the way, just for the record, I'm totally against these continuing resolutions. I think we should force the government to go back into doing budgets again. I don't think the federal government's done a budget since Bill Clinton's administration.
Right.
And I didn't do my history before I made that comment. So if anybody wants to correct me on that, please feel free. But the last one I remember getting passed, and it was a quote unquote balanced budget, although they can fudge the numbers.
Mhm.
We haven't had a budget since Bill Clinton. And Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House at that time.
Mhm.
And we had if I remember correctly, at least during one of his terms, maybe it was the second one, I can't remember. We had the Republicans had the majority in the House and the Senate. And so they're the ones that push through the balanced budget. But what would happen if we just said, okay, well, we can't say it, but if Congress has said, all right, we're not doing any more of these continuing resolutions. We're just going to roll up our sleeves and do a budget. What would happen then?
But the crazy thing is, it's not as simple as what they're saying. They want, I mean, even if you were to give them a clean slate, they want more. They want back the things that he's eliminated while the government's been shut down, on top of what they're asking for the illegals.
Yeah.
So they're not just going to settle with, let's leave it thing as exactly the way it is. Well, he's eliminated a lot of stuff while the government was shut down. Well, they gave him the power by not being there. And now they want that back, and they want the money for the illegals, for the health care.
That's a good point, Fred. And I'll ask anybody that's online here too. The stuff that they say they're eliminating during the shutdown, is that going to come back as soon as they resolve this shutdown issue, or is it gone forever?
Oh, it's gone. It has to be put back through the House again to bring any of that stuff back. And that's another reason why they're ticked off. And it's 2.1 trillion they want for illegals. Well, I got a counter to that. How about we take that 2.1 trillion and give it to these American soldiers who got hurt and crippled, giving their lives to protect this country, something, instead of giving it to illegals?
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think anybody could argue with that, except, and I'm gonna put a comment up here by Jim. Yes, the deficit did go up $1 trillion in 60 days. And I think you're right, Jim. When we first started this podcast, it was about a 90-day or a little bit more, I think, than 90 days to go up, to rack up another $1 trillion in debt. But that's what I'm saying. You know, regardless of who wins this shutdown battle, if the Democrats get their way, we add another 1.4 trillion to it. And where do we have it? I don't have a 1.4 trillion, Fred. I don't know about you. You might have a good retirement.
It's stupid. I don't think they should get free health care for anything. Nobody else is getting it for free. All of us are working and paying for them to get the freebies.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a slow crawl. There is no immediate answer that's going to get us out of the crap that we're in. But I mean, you can assume, but we're deep.
You know, I'm going to put up a comment.
What draining with the swamp looks like.
I'm going to put up a comment that Jim made, and it raises another question. Okay. So he's talking about this $40 billion that supposedly we sent to Argentina um, to help their farmers or their economy. Evidently, we're getting product from them. But let me ask you this: if the government is truly shut down, how can we be sending more aid to these other countries? Jim, do you have an answer for us on that? The government is supposed to be shut down, non-essentials. So if it's shut down, did we just make a promise, or is there like Obama did put billions on a plane and fly it down to them? You know, I don't know. I wish Jim was on here. He's made another comment. It was orchestrated, but I want to know if that money actually went down to Argentina yet. How could it go? How could we be spending money when we don't have a continuing resolution and supposedly only essential services are supposed to be funded? Riddle me that.
I think ultimately what this is just my theory. They're trying to get Trump to do something that supersedes his power so they can bring charges. They're trying to make him do something to go, oh, well, you're not allowed to do that as president. Oh, well, now we can charge you, because they couldn't get him with all the other false charges they made up. But if they can get him to do something that supersedes his power, then they're going to try and get him again. Oh, now we want you impeached. Now we want you impeached.
What are you thinking they're trying to do? Because
they think if he can get people afraid enough or scared enough that he might make a decision and pull money from a place that he's not allowed to, and then they're going to come out. Oh yeah, now we got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they've been doing that forever,
right?
So let me see. We get Diane made a comment here. Yeah, had to stay within workplace budget. Home budget. I don't know about you, Fred, but usually it causes all sorts of problems when you start spending more money than you're taking in.
True.
Credit card debt is exploding around this country. We as individuals, we as citizens of this country, we have to follow a budget. If we don't, it's called bankruptcy court. Why can't we hold our elected officials to that same standard?
Yeah, because when it comes to our elected officials, common sense goes out of the road. It's like asking an alcoholic how to stop drinking. Asking the government to resolve our budget problem is the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to that shutdown. That's not a shutdown. One of the things, let's go through some of the sticking points. Evidently, what they call the enhanced premium tax credits, and that's just I don't even know what the hell that means, but they're set to expire on December 31st, and they want them reinstated and extended, as a matter of fact, back to the original when it first came out, as I understand it, or at least extended. They were extended under Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which had nothing to do with reducing inflation, but they want to bring that back. And I'm trying to read my notes here, preventing it. Evidently, they're claiming that 15 million Americans are losing their subsidized coverage. All right. Now, are those Americans, or are those illegals, or are those immigrants? All right. Immigrants, whether they're illegal or here on a green card or here, working, this gets me going all the time. All right. So why do we, as American taxpayers, why are we obligated to pay the health insurance for immigrants who are not citizens of this country? Illegal, or here legally, or here illegally? Why are we responsible for their health care?
Shouldn't be.
So
We should-
why
it
is
should
this
be.
even an issue?
Because these are secured voters for them. They realize Americans are starting to see through their crap. So they got to bring in another group of people to help them out.
Yeah. Well, Jim made a comment. We need to hold them accountable to the Constitution. I agree with that.
That's the sad part, though.
I agree with to the point where we need them to hold them to the Constitution as it was originally written, not that
Right.
3,000 page plus behemoth that is full of court decisions.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They run on the lie that they're going to follow the constitutions, and people vote for them, and they get in the office, and then you see a different tone. That's what they do. They play the game. They get in, they get you to believe them with their smooth talk and their great words, and you vote. Then people vote them in, and then you find out these people are turtle turds, but they're in now. You can't get them out until a new election comes around. That's the sad part.
Yeah. Tom made a good comment here. Andrew Jackson, which, he had his problems too, but he evidently, and I'm going to go by your word here, Tom, because I don't know this for certain, but paid off the national debt in 1835. And he's going along with Jim here. There's no accountability from Congress. And I'll go back to, we've talked about this before. John Birch Society puts out, which I'm a member of, puts out a scorecard for congressmen and senators, both at the federal and the state level. And they'll pick like periodically 6 bills at random and look to see, did your representative vote constitutionally or not? And our friend G.T. Thompson, he has a lifetime, I think, of about 50% of the time following the Constitution. And one of the most recent sessions of Congress, he had dipped down to 47% of the time of following the Constitution. And I agree with you, Jim. Here, I'll put this up. I'm going to use this as my argument for the 10th Amendment. Anything that's not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution should not be, the federal government shouldn't have anything to do with it. It should go back to the states or to the local, to the people, to the states or the people, is exactly the way the Constitution reads. So all of these things, the name just about any 3-letter agency you want, they're unconstitutional. The Department of Education, unconstitutional. The FDA, unconstitutional. The Department of Health and Human Services, unconstitutional. It's not mentioned in the Constitution at all. So how do we, all right, so again, I'll pose this question to you, Fred, to all our listeners. How do you force our representatives to follow the Constitution when we put out a call for people to write to their congressman about this issue or call them, talk to them, and we can't get people to even to do that?
Very true.
We can't get people to act. Well, if we're not going to act, how can we expect them to change? They're just fat cats making their millions while they're in Washington, D.C., and they don't give a shit about the people. They don't. Their only concern is getting reelected, which is why, this thing, regardless of who wins this shutdown battle, if the Republicans cave and the Democrats get their way, well, it just adds to our debt. It's unconstitutional if the Republicans get their way and the Democrats cave. Things are going to go on as usual, and nothing's going to change.
I think There's a senator
Go ahead.
proposing a bill that they put in the House that whenever there's a possibility for a government shutdown, then the government won't shut down, but no one can leave DC until it's hashed out. That means they have to stay there. They can't go on vacation. They can't go nowhere. Just like Nancy's been hidden ever since this has started. They have to stay there until it's resolved. There is no time for you to go home in your luxury house and your massive mansion and enjoy your food and money that you have. No, you have to stay in DC until the issue is resolved. And I would go a step further. Until it's resolved, you don't get paid.
Yeah, I agree with that. Harold made a comment here. If immigrants come into we aren't responsible for them. I agree with that.
Right.
You can read it, his comment there. Jim made another comment here. Let me see if I can bring, a bunch of kind. I can't keep up with them all. That's good though. Keep them coming. Jim says the left and the right average person needs to shout Constitution. Okay, so we shout Constitution. Then what? If our elected officials ignore us,
exactly,
it might make us feel better, but it hasn't changed anything. And if we can't, I've been trying to get, hoping somebody would run against GT for the last 2 or 3 election cycles. Representatives are elected every 2 years. And I was talking to a friend of mine down in Ridgeway who was a very conservative activist, and I asked him, I said, why don't you run for GTC, run against him? I'll support you. And he says, I don't have the money to do it. It's all about money. And these congressmen get these big war chests built up over the years, and they go into an election with millions of dollars in the bank, where another person doesn't have that. And the only way they get that money is pretty much sell their soul to donors or, to big donors that can put up that kind of money. So again, following the Constitution is right, but how do we make them do that?
Exactly. It's no different than what happened during COVID. A lot of us were coming out and saying that this is wrong. This is wrong. We shouldn't take this. We shouldn't take this. What did they do? They censored us. They blocked us. They terminated people who were talking out. That's exactly what's going to, they ain't going to even listen to the group of people that stand on the street saying Constitution, Constitution, Constitution. Ain't going to get us nowhere because they ain't going to listen. Or they're going to agree with you. And then once they're in office, they're going to do something different.
Yeah. Diane made another good comment here. There should be penalties for those in government when the government budget, and they shouldn't be able to give themselves raises. And as you said, Fred, shouldn't be able to pay themselves.
No,
but the biggest, Diane brings up a good point here. It's like the chicken guarding the hen house, or the fox guarding the hen house. They vote themselves pay raises in the middle of the night. They make backdoor deals in the middle, or backroom deals in the middle of the night. And we've got a broken system here. And this shutdown is just one of the symptoms of it.
It's proof of how corrupt DC really is.
Yeah.
You're seeing in reality what it's going to take to drain the swamp. You're going to have to do something dramatic to make them realize, to make the world see how crooked they are. And until I'm glad Trump's actually doing it, to be honest with you, because in reality, you don't work, you don't eat.
Okay, so I'm going to put up another comment. I wish I had Jim. If I could send you a link right now, if you would get on, I'd send you the link and have you come on. But he says most left and right policies would go away if we followed the Constitution. Absolutely right. But again, it comes back to that. How do you make them follow the Constitution? And somebody, please tell me, how do we make them follow the Constitution?
Everything that they vote for in DC, I mean, maybe they do this and I just don't know. It should all be televised live so that people can hear exactly what they're saying with the proposals they're trying to do. Not little clips that you get on the internet. No, the entire process for when they're voting in new rules should be live so we can actually hear your true opinion of the type of person you really are, because it'll come out and they'll hear everything that you say.
Well,
they
you
what they
got
want to see.
C-SPAN, Fred.
Right, I
But
know.
who in the hell watches C-SPAN?
That's the problem. That's the problem right there.
I don't. I'll be honest with you, I don't.
Right.
You know, because most of the time C-SPAN, you know, the congressmen, the senators are playing to the playing to the camera. They're
Exactly. That's what I mean. They are playing to the camera, and you're only getting what they want you to see.
yeah. And I'm going to put up another comment from Jim here because it just goes to what I'm saying. You know, he's blaming it on Trump, but they're all, you know, it's not just a Trump thing. It's you can't get anybody to follow the Constitution. And how do you force that? How do we, the people, other than elections, the only thing we have in our favor other than revolution is elections.
I mean, you got people sitting in DC that have been there close to 30 and 40 something years not following the Constitution. Trump comes along and puts 4 years in, and now he's the only one not following the Constitution. Let's look at the whole picture here. We got people sitting there that are not even remotely thinking about the Constitution, and they've been in there 40 plus years.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of these comments here again. Okay, keep his word. Well, we'll make all the politicians keep their word. How about that?
But none of them do.
Kick themselves out when they don't. Oh, I wish they would. I really do, Diane. I really wish they would. What if we? All right, let me give you a thought here. What if we could get a referendum on the ballot in each district? A referendum about a no confidence vote. So if our representative, in this case is G.T. Thompson, if he's only following the Constitution 50% of the time, why can't we get a referendum in our district, in his district, on the thing, and for a no confidence vote, and then it will go all across the country. I'm just using GT as an example because he's our representative, but do a no confidence vote and get them out. I don't know if we can legally do that or not, but I think it would be a wonderful idea if we could.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the sad thing is, but the leaders that we currently have in power positions, even in our party, support certain people that we say have issues.
Yeah, Jim makes a good point here. First of all, they do sell out or they get blackmailed. And most of them have the money. They could ride out a government shutdown.
That's right. Yeah. They're filthy rich. They don't even have a problem. That's the reason why they leave DC. But if they were forced to stay there and have to deal with this, then they'd be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, Don. So I hope you don't believe Trump is the only person to break a promise.
I'm telling you.
Well, what is that old adage? How can you tell if a politician is lying? His lips are moving. Okay.
And the reality is this: even if you're running for president and you make promises that you want to do to get in office, there's no guarantee whatsoever that Congress and the House are going to agree to what you want done. There's 3 parts of the branch.
Well, that brings up another issue altogether with the separation of powers. It's really flipped, but that's for another podcast. We could go down a rabbit hole there. But going back to the other thing I forgot that the Republicans want, the Democrats are against. So the Republicans want all able-bodied people that are getting Medicare benefits or Medicaid. They want them to have a work requirement. Okay. Exactly. So if you're able-bodied, and think about this, Fred, I don't know how many hours a week you work, but their work requirement would only be 80 hours a month.
Right.
That's 10 hours a week on a 4-week
nothing.
month.
That's
10
nothing.
hours a week. And they can't do that. And the Democrats or whoever is opposed to that idea, Democrat or Republican, say, "Oh, we can't make them work. That's discrimination. They're not able to work." Well, if they're able-bodied, yes, they are.
Yeah, and that excludes anybody that's handicapped, anybody that has too many kids, anybody that has mental problems, anybody that's those people are not included in that. This is people who are perfectly healthy, who are sitting on their butts, shoving Twinkies down their mouths and getting free food. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah, Twinkies. That's good. Tom brings up another good point. Yeah, remember George Bush 1, HW, on his no new taxes promise? Well, that didn't last
Read
long.
my lips. No new taxes. I remember that very clear.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's going on that. So, anyways, back to this. We're in day 28. What is the? I don't know what the record is. I should Google that. What the record for a shutdown is, but I know we're like in about the 4th longest one. So this isn't the longest that we've seen in there. So, and again, keep in mind it's only essential services, or the essential services that are still being paid for. It's the unessential services. Let me just go through the list of what else the Democrats are demanding here. Let's see. Oh, that's what I just said. The able-bodied workers. No policy writers on funding bills. Remove Republican added provisions such as defunding Planned Parenthood, blocking, which I agree 100% with that. 100%. Planned Parenthood. All that is the abortion industry and selling baby parts.
That's exactly what it is.
Blocking EPA climate regulations, which is the Green New Deal.
100%.
Which is the champ. The Green New Deal is a UN-led propaganda to
modern day Chicken Little story.
Yeah. And then limiting DOJ investigation, Department of Justice investigations into election interference on January 6th related cases. So they want to stop that too. That's part of this thing that they're holding out on. And then restricting federal funding for gender affirming care.
Right.
So they want to once again bring back our tax, give away our tax money to mentally ill people that think that their gender is not correct, that they're, boys are supposed to be girls and girls are supposed to be boys. They want us to fund that mental illness. So that's that. And then emergency funding guarantees they want an additional $10 billion for SNAP contingency reserves to ensure that benefits are paid even if the shutdown continues. Well, how can you agree to that if the shutdown is continuing? I don't understand that. They want $2.5 billion for FAA air traffic controller staffing and TSA operations to prevent holiday travel collapse. But we said this off camera, Fred, before we started the show. If they go with their 1.4 trillion, even if they agree, where in the hell is this money coming from?
That's the problem.
Fake money doesn't solve problems. It only creates more problems.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, and it stems back to the whole Federal Reserve and the idea that the Federal Reserve, which has zero assets, can print money and lend that well, they don't even print it anymore, but they invent fake money that they then lend to the federal government, which again, it's fake money. There's nothing there, but we pay money or we pay interest on funny money. So even if the Democrats got their way and we ended this shutdown tomorrow by giving them everything they wanted, how in the heck are we going to pay for this?
Right. The thing is just about every system we got out there is designed to allow people to not be responsible for their own situations. It's just so that people who can actually work is paying for your problem because you're too darn lazy to fix it.
Yeah. Here, we got, Tom made a comment about building, when in Trump's first term wanted to build the wall. I'm assuming you're referring to Trump's first term, Tom, where he wanted 5.7 billion for the wall.
Right.
Think about this. If those 20 plus million illegal immigrants wouldn't have flooded our borders and come across, would we be having most of these problems that we're having right now?
True.
I don't think so. So anyways, I think we beat that down enough. You just can't continue funding the federal government with funny money. And Jim, I'll go back to some of your, printing money out of thin air isn't constitutional either, but they do it. We still do it as a country. So, how do we stop it? Nobody has an answer. And that's the problem. Nobody has an answer how to resolve all this. And Tom just agreed with me. 3 genders, male, female, and mentally ill. There you go. I love it. That's a good comment, Tom. Thank you. So any other comments about the shutdown that's not a shutdown? I don't know when this is going to go away. They'll resolve it somehow. But
and they always got to have their stories to try to throw you off of what's really going on. That's why they're making such a big stink about the White House and the remodeling and putting in a ballroom. Well, they're doing that so that they can take you off the fact that they're making Americans suffer by doing this shutout, but they're going to try and bring up another story to try to keep you from looking at the truth.
Yeah. I'm going to, I have a couple comments here. Diane believes that there are people in government that want to collapse our country. Absolutely. And I would say that was the reason for Jim's next statement here. It says the rest of the world is taking steps against this fake money. Yes, they are. They're doing their own currency. The reserve currency status that we enjoy is going to go away. It's already starting to go away in some areas. The petrodollar is starting to go away in some areas. But the people that can make a difference and make the change aren't going to do it on their own. They just aren't. We have been putting forth initiatives, and I'll say I've been talking about it for 4 years. JBS, this is one of their big pushes to get us out of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913 by the Federal Reserve Act. All it would take was another act of Congress to reverse the Federal Reserve Act and make that go away, go back to constitutional money, which is gold and silver. And if you got to have paper currency, back to paper currency again with gold and silver, and get rid of the federal and get, the problem is it would be very hurtful. The problem is if they did that, first of all the paper millionaires in this country would disappear. And the billionaires and the trillionaires that are holding federal or, holding, assets in American money, or backed by American money, they would be reduced to millionaires. Maybe Trump himself would go from a billionaire to a millionaire. In other words, it would be very, very painful if we did this, if we tried to solve the problem. But it's going to be painful if we don't. So again, there's another push is to get us out of the United Nations. The United Nations is pushing us to a one world government, and the powers that, as Jim says, powers that ought not to be, are pushing us towards a complete collapse. So we have no choice but to accept a one world government, which is going to include digital ID, biometrics ID, and social credit scores and all of that. So how do we stop it? Tell me. I'm going to ask that question until I go to my grave, I guess.
I think people don't realize sometimes to get things better, sometimes it's got to hurt a little before it's going to get better. And going from what they're doing to going to back to the gold and silver, yes, it's going to hurt a little, but sometimes it's got to hurt a little before it gets better.
Yeah, Jim saying the Federal Reserve meets to discuss interest rates, and it's going to drop another, 0.25%, 0.5%. And what that does is it makes money borrowing a little bit more affordable. Yes, the big guys get the benefit from that, and then it trickles down to little guys. All these symptoms, I'm going to put that up there. All these symptoms are coming about because of, manipulation. But it's still, we can point out to symptoms until the cows come home, but it doesn't solve the problem. We can talk about the symptoms forever. We can say, oh, isn't this terrible that they're lowering interest rates and the millionaires are going to get the benefit. Oh, that's terrible. Yes, it's terrible.
Right.
But until you come to me with a solution, all we're going to do is commiserate about how terrible it is.
I mean, there's a plaque there in DC that says, "In God we trust," but now they've changed it to now when you're sworn in the office, you don't even have to put your hand on the Bible anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. We got really down a rabbit hole on this whole thing. We got off topic on that, but until we get some people elected that have the balls to do what it's going to take, and they have to do it without worrying about getting reelected. Because I'll tell you what, anybody that goes in there and starts talking about it, and they make people's incomes or their wealth go down, even if they make it through their first term, are never going to get reelected. And that's what they're interested in, is reelection. They're not interested in helping people. They're interested in keeping their jobs. So that's enough said on that. We've got a few minutes here, Fred, about 10 minutes left. Tell me how we're still seeing in the news, and in whether it's mainstream news or podcasters or whoever, about, we're switching gears here to ICE, and it still talks about immigration and trying to get rid of the illegals. But this is another thing about holding, and the transition to this subject is holding people accountable. So we've got mostly Democrat mayors, I think they all are, or governors that are creating sanctuary states and cities that are actually fighting against the immigration services, ICE. And not only that, they're encouraging people to violence against them. So how do we, if we can't arrest them, in other words, Pam Bondi says, and whether you like her or not, if they do it again, we're going to arrest them. Well, let's stop talking about it and let's arrest them. I want to see that governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago, both of them, I want to see them perp walked out of their building in handcuffs. So if we can't,
they're telling the people to come against ICE. They really are.
Yeah. I'm going to backtrack here again because Jim just put another comment up, and I want everybody to see it here. Stop the digital ID, stop the Genius Act, which just got voted in. Executive orders on AI and tokenization. So he's suggesting we call the White House and Congress. Okay. W- What are we going to tell them? We're going to tell them to reverse the Genius Act. We don't. I think they know most people don't want digital IDs, but we can tell them that. I write and or call my senators and congressmen, both at the state and federal level, several times a month on different issues, and I always get a form letter back. Thank you for your comments on such and such. And
Right.
don't you know that I'm the best person in Congress and I'm fighting for you? That's the form letter I get. I mean, I'm being facetious there a little bit, but that's the form letter I get. So
Right.
yeah, if we could mobilize millions to do that, to make the calls, and mobilize millions to say if you don't do what's right, you don't get reelected, or or whatever else you want to tell them to make them try to do right. Unless we can get millions, it's not going to make a difference.
Right. You got to get a
My
lot of people.
my phone calls and my letters, my emails I think are just little annoyances on the desks of their aides, and I would be. I'm not even sure that these
It never
letters
makes
have
it to
to
'em.
get to the senators or the representative. Because the aides are the ones receiving them, and they're the ones doing the form letters back.
You
So
need you need a march like the 1 million Pearson March on DC to get their attention. That's what you're going to need. You're going to need that amount of people showing up, all with the same message, showing up in DC, and a number that they just have to go, oh, I guess we got to listen. But as long
yeah,
as you're that person that's writing a letter or just calling, I guarantee you most of those letters that you guys write in, they just throw it straight in the trash.
well, I don't know what they do with them, but Tom, you're right. I mean, and I don't. As fruitless or as frustrating as this is for me, I still write and
It's
call
good to
and
do.
write
It's good to
and
write and
call.
keep doing it. But I mean, it's still going to take more than just like a few people, but more than 1% of the people doing it to get it done. And you notice the lady that got schools changed, she didn't just write a letter. She showed up in DC continuously and wanting to speak, wanting to speak, wanting to speak until she got prayer taken out of school. But she showed up in person. She didn't show up with a letter or a note or a phone call. She showed up in person protesting it. And one woman got it done. But she didn't do it from the phone. She didn't do it from a letter. She showed up in person.
Yeah. Here, Diane made a good comment. We need to get as organized as well, whether it be the communists or the lefts or whoever you want to say. They are very organized. I'm going to use that comment as a segue to a plug for the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society is an organization that was founded. It wasn't founded by John Birch. They used his name. He was a missionary over in China. You can go to jbs.org and get the whole story. But the thing is, they are an organization fighting for the constitution and the rule of law, and trying to hold elected officials accountable. And we're trying to get a chapter started here in Bradford. We got we've been hammering this home, but this is not just Bradford thing. This is all over the country. If you don't have a local chapter, just go to jbs.org. You can join that organization just to support them, and you'll get. But there again, if you want to get organized, if you want to make a difference, you got to get organized. You got to get, again, not thousands of people, but millions of people. Okay. Right. If this is an organization I just latched onto after I found out about them when they came and did a town hall in Bradford when we were talking about the Convention of States debate. And I realized that I resonated with most everything they stood for on the constitutional issues. So that's how we need to get organized. So if you've got another organization that's just as good, join that and become active. We say it to, I'm going to pull up my notes here. We say, hang on a second here. I bumped my mouse and everything went away. I'm gonna copy this and put it in the comments, because I put this in my notes every week to remind me. And let's see here. Let's try to get it posted here. But here's what we need. We need people engaged in politics, or we will not have a free country. How many times have you heard, oh, the two things that you never talk about are politics and religion?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you avoid politics and you're just letting people do whatever the hell they want to in Washington or Harrisburg, in the case of Pennsylvania, or any other state capital, and if you avoid the whole conversation with faith, that's how we have got to where we are today, because we don't have any more faith in this country. Or it's not anymore. Excuse me, I didn't mean that. But we have become, at best, an agnostic country. We aren't a Christian country anymore. And the ones that are trying to take over, and excuse me, I'm not trying to be phobic in any way, but the Muslims are the ones that are expanding in this country. The Christians, because they're afraid to say anything. They're afraid to do anything. We can't be afraid anymore, and we can't be afraid to make a difference. We can't be afraid to make our voice heard. We can't be afraid to stand up and speak out.
The sad thing is this. The church, the church itself, Christians in general, could make a huge impact on politics. But the problem is, even in the church, we fight with each other over who's singing what song from the pulpit. We get mad about who's talking. We get mad about the style of the music being sang. We get mad if somebody sits in our seat that we sit in every time in the church. I sit there every Sunday. Why you sitting in my chair? This is the problem. We fight over the petty.
Yeah. I agree with this, Jim. God, Constitution, community. I'm just going to raise the question again. How?
Like I said, we're too petty to come together in unity to do what needs to be done, that we fight over this tiniest little things.
Yep. It's like on that, I can't remember the movie name, where the grasshopper said, if they realized, how many they have, and we would be doomed, if they realized how powerful they could be. But they keep us divided. They keep us weak. They keep us afraid. And so they always will have power.
I think, and even a German general said that about the Jews. He said, they totally outnumber us, but they do nothing but let us do what we do.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know if turning point is this thing. We've had, remember what happened after 9/11, which they thought was just a Muslim attack, but it was a CIA attack.
Very much so.
People gathered together in churches and prayed and came, and there wasn't any enemies after that, except among our people. We all came together as Americans. How long did that last?
A season.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure what that is, but let's see. Jim's got another. Yep. Say, instead of Democrats and Republicans, we're Americans. Yep. We are Americans.
I say that to people all the time.
But some of us
people stereotype me saying that just because I'm black, I'm a Democrat. But I said, no, I'm not. I'm an American.
Okay. So if we all started saying we're Americans, but some of the Americans have anti-American ideas. See, just the labels aren't making a difference. Yeah, they were divided by labels, but we could say, okay, we're gonna do away with the words Democrat and Republican. We're never going to use them again. All right. So we are Americans. Well, some Americans are against America, and want to destroy it, and some Americans are for America and want to save it. It
And
doesn't.
some have so much
I
hate
guess
in their
what
heart.
I guess what I'm saying is just eliminating the words doesn't solve the problem.
And some people have so much hate in their heart that they won't agree to anything.
Here's another. Yeah, you're right. And I just said that we're Americans, and some Americans want to put in bad policies. And some Americans want to uphold the Constitution. It sounds nice, but it's not a solution. So I don't mean to discourage everybody, but that's where my frustration comes from, is the fact that we really don't have the solution, or I'll even say, even if we did have a solution, which I think we've talked about some here, get rid of the Federal Reserve, get us out of the UN, get us stop fighting against each other in this country. But even if you did all those things, do the people, we the people, all the people, all 370 million of us, do we have the will to do what's going to be necessary to save this country?
And I got a suggestion. Let's start with this. I mean, when we get married to somebody, our parents always tell us to ask the tough questions to our spouse. So this person who we're dating, who we're eventually going to marry, you got to ask the tough questions. What do they stand for? What do they believe in? Why don't we just start doing this in churches? Why don't you go to your pastor and find out where he stands and what he believes in? Because then you might find out you're sitting under a pastor who's anti-Constitution, anti-American. You might be shocked what you might find out. But at the same time, do they believe in the Bible? Or do they take out certain parts and only include certain ones? Sometimes you might be sitting under someone who is anti-American in itself.
Well, here is one solution, and I'll post it here. We say this, we used to say it at the end of every podcast.
If my people, that's right.
Yep. So if my people are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and heal their land. I don't know. We've talked about this before. Does that mean all 370 million people have to do that? No, I don't think so. I think it means that the Bible believing Christians have to come together and do that. And then maybe we can make a difference.
And I believe the change is not going to come through the government. It's going to come through the church.
Yeah. All right. So I want to know, Jim says every time he's talked with people this way, I've had good results. I guess would be questioning what are the results that have been good? Just that people have agreed with you, or has action come about? Our action, we're trying to get a JBS chapter going to get more like-minded people together, to expand the idea and to get more like-minded people joining together and fighting this thing. Again, I go back to that. We need to get people active. We need action. We don't need more rhetoric. We need action.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you can do, I'm saying this to everybody out there, anything that you can do that creates a action in a positive way to help this country, to bring us back together, then do it. Get involved. But if all you're going to do is bitch and go back and just shout at the news or not do anything, then I'm sorry, you're part of the problem. You got to do something. You got to get involved. If not, it's over. Last one out, turn off the lights. Yeah.
I like that.
Charlie says the root of the problem is spiritual, individually and collectively. You're right. I mean, you can't deny that. And that's why we're saying, you got to get back to God if you don't have God, there's not going to be any hope anyway. All right. For the country, for you individually, if you don't have God in your life. But the only way to do it is if we all start coming together, getting involved, join an organization, join like-minded people, do something, write letters, make phone calls, run for office. I don't care if it's the school board or the mayor of your town or county commissioners. Do something, but get involved. Because if you don't,
most importantly, pray and ask God instead of asking AI.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Fred. We never even got to our last subject. We'll save that for another podcast because it's already 7 minutes after 10, and so we're already running late. But have any other last minute comments, Fred? Let you close it out with any comments.
Okay. Well, no, I just think that the bottom line is we need to get a fire underneath us, and this is not just a fire on how we're going to get the government to fix it, but what this has all got. The Bible's got all the answers. Some people don't believe that. I mean, no, you can't run up to someone and say that's not what the Bible says. No, if most of our Constitution will have a lot of biblical background in it, and that's what we need to look at. I mean, we need to weigh everything according to what the Word says, and if they're running for office and they're completely against the Word of God, then why are we voting them in?
Yeah, good point. Good point. All right. Well, why don't we close on that thought? And as always, Fred, I'm going to turn to you and ask you to close this thing out in prayer today, if you would, my friend.
All right, y'all. I just thank you for the day. I thank you for all the people who came and the comments that came in, Lord. I just pray, Lord, that you would take that and you light a fire in us, Lord, that we would do what's right and not what's wrong, Lord, that we would start to look at people according to your word and not according to our opinion, Lord, that we would start to evaluate people based on their heart and their love for you and not their heart and love for things. I ask, Lord, that you would bless everyone that's listening, give them a heart for you, Lord, and if you're not a part of a church, go out and find a church and find out where they stand, Lord. I ask you to bless everyone that's listening in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Fred. And I will say again, if you aren't involved with an organization that's fighting for this country, check out jbs.org. If you're in the Bradford area, reach out to me. I'll tell you all about it and tell you about our chapter meetings and so on and so forth and what we're trying to get done. So the bottom line is get involved some way. So with that, we'll close it out for today. Thanks everybody for the comments on here and for the participation and for joining us today. We will be back again next week. And for now, wherever you are and however, whatever your day is like, we want you to be blessed